Can I say, what if some women are waiting to find men with traditional roles?
Are they traditional women?
You have to adapt to society.
It sounds like
You can't want a traditional man, and you're not traditional.
Traditional women are suffering bad. I've been seeing a lot of videos of virgins coming out, and I say we also need to be recognized. We keep being left behind.
Wait, are we talking virgins like sexually? Like I'm very
confused. No.
My
my view is that if you're not a virgin, like you're a virgin, you get married. That's the way it was back then. That is traditional. Okay. You can be a traditionalist. If you're not a virgin, you are not traditional. In my view, you are a traditionalist.
Can I say something that's kind of strange that I actually noticed because I've been watching a lot of like time period sort of movies? The purity that we talk about in virgins, the tradition that come from like centuries. Realistically, there's like pervy old men that were kind of like trying to buy children from like other families. I'm not gonna lie.
Listen, right, my grandmother, my granddad,
like 14,
listen,
15.
right, that's rubbish. My grandmother and my granddad, they got married, and my grandmother died at 100 and odd years old. My granddad weren't pervy. And they were both virgins.
I'm not talking about your granddad.
I'm trying to say that you can't say a whole generation that because it was traditional then, that was old men and pervy, that they were perving on young people.
Well, okay, I'll put it in another way.
Don't generalize. Like, don't generalize.
I'll just put it into another way. I'm not. You're picking like a nice example that is beautiful.
Well, stop picking the bad ones. I'm just evening it up.
That's great. That's fantastic. Another example, like child marriage, it happens all over the world. It's just because, and these are the more traditional places in the world.
In the Western world, child marriage is in the Western world.
I'm just explaining, yeah, that the more traditional places in the world, this happens. So if we in the Western world, we're trying to go back into more traditional values.
Where does it happen?
Africa, Asia.
Which Africa?
That's what I want to know.
You don't know about child marriage?
No, my love. You can't take extreme examples. No. Because even Nigeria, even Africa is westernized.
No.
I see people that in Africa that speak like Nathan and they've never been to America. You understand?
Yes.
So you can't say in Africa, okay, you can't take extreme examples to explain what you're trying to say. Child marriage is a whole different... For Miami. No. I'm saying that they speak like American.
Oh,
you understand?
I thought you tried to say I ain't been to America.
No. I'm saying that there's people in Nigeria that speak like they're American and they've never been anywhere. She's saying Africa. Africa is not what... Don't paint Africa like one backwards country.
Now for you, my sister. I'm African too. I'm Angolan. I know what I'm talking about.
So I'm saying...
What I'm mentioning is... I mentioned Africa, I mentioned Asia, I mentioned certain parts in the world that are more traditional.
Talk about what you know about.
I'm talking about what I know about.
Angola.
Listen.
Talk about Angola.
Okay, I'll go to Angola. If you go, even like literally, it's one of the most. This is quite normal. I don't know how people don't understand this. Like how underage girls, that shouldn't even be having sex with grown men. They're doing it because their families are arranging this with other families because of financial gain, whatever. And this has been the tradition from back in the day, kings and queens days, and that's where the idea of purity being what is favored, that's where it comes from. Realistically, if we really stop to think about it, and some of the most traditional, like the ones that have not been tainted by Western ideals,
the majority of marriages in Angola are not child marriages.
Oh, by the way, don't listen to the stats. This is a communist country.
She said that. Wow, I would say, "See me, see wahala." You don't come. I'm not gonna lie. Don't actually come and do that because it's not fair. Like, don't like it. It doesn't happen in Angola. Child marriage does happen. Okay, it does happen. It's something that it's a problem.
Minority.
Even genital.
Mutilation.
These are things. But now you see, we're in a society where we recognize this as it is not meant to be like this, right? So this is why these issues are addressed. But what we're talking about is about modern, even in Nigeria, there's no more. Even I'm Igbo. Do you know how to say I'm traditional? That tradition is still not there. It's traditionalist, like you said, but it's not as tradition as...
What's the difference between culture and tradition?
Just the legal age for marriage for both men and women in Angola is 18 years old. You are right. It's more prevalent. It's more prevalent than it is here. But you speak as if it's oppressing. Like why are you speaking on something you don't know?
I'll tell you because I do know one, and then I'll tell you. I'll use another example. I'm trying to do is expose the fact. All I'm trying to no, because it's interesting. Because what I like to do, is I like people to explore their different ideas. For example, go back to the most traditional thing. e.g., Boko Haram. Yeah, this is just an example. It's extreme, but just to explain what traditionalism actually means. No, but wait. Boko Haram, what they stand for is basically against Western culture, because Western culture, in their eyes, tainted the tradition. What is meant to be there and what should be there. What do?
It did.
They take girls and they marry them all over the world, or all over like the place. They kidnap them, in fact, and they married children. And all I'm saying is that actually the traditional idea, the traditional view of purity is not stemming from a woman. Why does a woman have to be virgin? Why does she have to be
Is that traditional depending on the culture?
No,
because no. Because that is not traditional throughout the whole Western world. That what you're talking about is tradition that is for that culture.
The Western world modernized, and that's why it's strange.
For that culture. It is not all over the Western world. And things are changing. So that is it. If you look at how many child marriages happen over the whole Western world and look at the percentages, it's going to be minute. So you can't stand here and make it like it's a majority, because it's not. So traditional doesn't mean child marriages by pervy old men is what you're saying.
That's not what I'm saying.
That is what you said.
What I'm saying
is what you said.
For you to understand.
I am using you. I don't want to understand because I don't agree with nothing you're saying. I don't want to understand. You said that tradition means that pervy old men are going to go and sleep with underage children. Do you know what?
Let's rewind.
It's the way you took the example and then put it into the context. That's why I said that you can't use that example to explain what we're talking about.
And the one thing you're taking
I'm just questioning where you think the purity idea comes from.
The one thing you're taking out of context from a historical perspective is people did not live as long. It was not because the men were pervs. It was because people had to get started a lot quicker in order to reproduce. It was a reproductive strategy. The reason that men like pure women is because they had to ensure paternity. If you were sleeping around screwing the whole town, they didn't know if that kid was theirs. Okay. It's not that they're pervy.
That makes sense.
Okay.
What is the difference between a 17 and an 18-year-old?
Okay, then I'll ask another question. Can I ask you a question then?
Yeah.
Or another example. Cool.
Quickly.
If that is the case, then again, I'll just say kings and queens, all these times they married young girls and they were not the same age.
Yeah, young virginal women have yes.
Okay,
that
and
is
they were
valued
older
across
men.
cultures.
No, but life expectancy back then wasn't even 35. I asked the Asian Romans. It wasn't even 35.
And the girls married younger.
People got married younger because they did not live as long.
Yeah, okay.
That was normal back then.
Right. That was normal back then. And what I'm trying to explain is that this idea of purity and youth is coming from an outdated context.
I think that's a cope because you don't have it anymore.
Do you know what?
I don't mind.
Women that sleep around that are not virgins, they will say that. Women that have lots of sex that will turn around, they will say that because they want to find men. They need a man. That's what they're going to turn around and say. Purity don't matter because it can't matter where you've lost it, because that's one thing you can't get back that you're giving away, your virginity. So that's why you have to say that. You have to say it don't matter so that you can get a man.
You know you can get operations now. Just say.
All right.
Go on then. Go and become a maid again virgin.
Aunty, what I was saying before was like, I really don't buy this idea. I think this is like one of these weird things that where like traditionalists pretend that like the past was some great place and everyone was super happy all the time. Everyone made these decisions. Monogamy was the perfect for everyone. Everyone was really happy in their marriage. And I think it's a bit more nuanced than that. I've seen a lot of examples enough for me to question that narrative that like maybe the first or second guy you got with a married wasn't the best fit. Maybe, you know.
Do you know something, right? Back in those days, you made your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah.
You made your bed, you lie in it. And once you lie in it, you make it work.
It wasn't about happiness, it was about duty.
You know what I mean?
The difference is we took away consequences now. So now women have no consequence for any decision they pick. I'm sure women back then, there were ones that wanted to leave and probably could if there wasn't a consequence.
Do you know something? Right, years ago, if I had sex and I got pregnant, I'm stuck with him. Think about it. And if that was a consequence now, and women knew that every time they sleep with a man, they can get pregnant, do you think they'd be messing about and sleeping around so much? So you can't say that, you know, things have changed now, that was back in the day, that they won't happen, because they made it work. And the thing is, all the modern people now, they think that, I'm going to get with a man and it's going to be more rosy. You know what I mean? 32 years is bloody hard work. I've been through some shit and it's hard work. You make it work. If that was the case, it's too easy to turn around and say, you know what, it don't work for me, I'm going to leave. You never had that back in the day. Because if you turned around and you had sex with a man and you got pregnant and you didn't make it work, you were a failure.
I like the way how you drop that. I love that.
But
thank you.
I love that.
But surely there are cases. So I get that in the past relationships had, they had to just deal with it and they had to be pragmatic and stoic and that has its benefits, right? But surely that's not what fits for every situation. Surely there are situations where women having the freedom to choose another path, albeit, maybe a path that in the end would lead her to be a single cat lady. Surely there's situations where you could say, all right,
do you know
that wasn't a good marriage and maybe this is not one of them
ones
where you
something,
should tough it out.
This is where society's let women down. I'm the last of them. When I had my son and I was a single parent, it wasn't like now. I brought shame on the family. So it wasn't a matter of fact of saying, oh, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have a child and then it don't work for me. It's not a fit. Because if you went out there years ago and you had a child and it didn't fit, you know what? You didn't fit in society. You did not fit. Everybody's talking about the modern women. Everybody's talking about the leftover women. Do you know what they're not talking about? Spinsters. And you know what? That's what you don't know what a spinster is.
Someone who pretends to be traditional.
No, Google it so that I don't get it wrong.
Isn't
Spinster,
that
that is what? No. That is what the modern women nowadays are going to end up to be. A good old-fashioned. It's an old-fashioned word. Believe you me, a spinster. And years ago, you did not want to be a spinster. Just as nowadays, you shouldn't want to be a leftover woman. What's a spinster, Pearl?
An unmarried woman, typically an older woman beyond the usual age for marriage.
Oh,
what age? Okay.
Leftover woman.
What age was considered a spinster? The word spinster was used to refer to a single woman between the ages of 23 to 26, while Thornback is reserved for those 26 and above.
Nowadays, people are getting insulted with the word leftover. Years ago, you'd get insulted and feel shame if you were called a spinster. That's the only difference.
Same thing.
Exactly. Okay. It's the same thing. But for me now, I didn't know nothing about this modern woman. I knew that to be a cat woman or a dog lady, you were a spinster.
Okay, I do get where you're coming from. I would say I differ in the fact that I think we let women down and society down by promoting the wrong... We don't promote like the right values now. I think we encourage women to be masculine and we tell men to be weak and you to be emotional. And everyone should have their space in the victim
Do you know
table.
something? I don't think it's we.
I think not us, but the big people at the top who want us, who have the message.
Thank you.
I think that's the real issue in it. Because if you were promoting the virtues of being a woman, of being agreeable, of being pleasant, of being someone who can coexist, who adds value and synergy to a man, if you're promoting resilience in men and saying, listen, life happens, you've got to be stronger, hit the gym, work on yourself, be someone strong. A strong man will naturally settle down, innit? Because we don't have time to mess around all folk.
But you know something? Back in the day, the men were hot, sexy, and muscular, and they never had no gym. And the women never had no flabby arms. You know why? Because they never had no gym. They didn't have no microwave. They didn't have no washing machine. They didn't have no rice cooker. They had to go and wash by hand. And you see, nowadays, I've seen people like doing... I can't if I get it wrong, like Gary and Fufu, they're doing it in a blender in a microwave. Years ago, you had to get it there, and that's why you got rid of all of this. You know what I mean? You got rid of all of that. So you didn't have to go to no gym.
Yeah,
you didn't have to go to, and the men didn't have to go to no gym. The men were naturally toned and good because they have to work with their hands. And modernization has caused people to be lazy.
Yeah, my point is that it's not giving women more freedom. I think I don't think that's where we've gone wrong. I think we've given them more freedom and then promoted the wrong paths. So it's like,
nah.
I'm so sorry.
I feel like we should get rid of freedom for women.
No, I feel like
first with the vote, we could
wait.
That.
Then if we remove
just the villain, like.
if we remove freedom for women, let's remove options. There's too many options these days as well. Everyone thinks that everyone is replaceable. Like before, you said you make your bed, you lie in it.
Yeah,
that's your thing. You take it, you picked it, you choose it, you take it, go.
Now you
but
make
that's
your bed,
values, though.